In the 396th District Court of Fort Worth, Texas, the case of Aaron Dean, a former officer facing sentencing, unfolds. Dean shot Atatiana Jefferson, a 28-year-old black woman, in her home, resulting in her death. The trial exposed Dean's actions and his indifference towards the life he took. On the night of October 12, 2019, Fort Worth's calm was broken by a tragic event that would deeply affect its residents. Atatiana Jefferson was enjoying a quiet evening with her nephew, Zion, playing video games, unaware of the awaiting danger. The sequence of events began with a neighbor's call to the non-emergency police line, concerned about an open door at Jefferson's mother's house, suspecting a break-in. Dean and another officer, responding to the call, noticed the open door but strayed from routine police procedures. Dean did not announce himself or make his presence known in any standard way. Instead, he moved silently to the backyard, where he could see inside through a window. Jefferson, sensing someone outside and unable to identify them as police, armed herself for protection and approached the window to investigate. In an instant, without any warning or identification, Dean fired through the window, fatally shooting Jefferson. This moment of violence, captured on Dean's body camera, tragically ended Jefferson's life in her supposed safe haven, leaving her nephew in shock. The aftermath saw the community unite in grief and demand for justice, sparking wider discussions on police brutality and the need for law enforcement reform. Dean's trial, characterized by his attempt to claim self-defense and showing no regret for his actions, only intensified the pain of Jefferson's family and supporters.
Just looking right down the barrel of the and when I saw the barrel of that gun pointed at me, and I fired a single shot from my duty weapon.
As the trial drew to an end, the jury spent about 13 hours deliberating before they came to a decision.
We, the jury, having found the defendant Aaron York Dean guilty beyond a reasonable doubt of the offense of manslaughter, assess his punishment at confinement in the Texas Department of Criminal Justice for 11 years, 10 months, 12 days.
Dean was found guilty of manslaughter, classified as a second-degree felony under the Texas Penal Code, and received a prison sentence of 11 years, 10 months, and 12 days. In a courtroom in Van Buren County, the case against Eric Fritz, a former Covert Township police officer, is set to reach its verdict. Fritz's actions, from sexually assaulting a woman he encountered during a traffic stop to his blunt lack of regret in court, are about to be analyzed. This case exposes the disturbing events and Fritz's evident lack of remorse. The incident commenced on July 9, 2016, with what began as a standard traffic stop by Fritz, then a new officer. This routine interaction turned dark, leading to a chain of disturbing actions. Fritz stopped a vehicle for drunk driving, an ordinary task for police. However, the situation escalated when he met Melissa McMillan, the intoxicated passenger. Instead of adhering to the law, Fritz abused his authority, choosing to act on his disgusting impulses. He manipulated his power to force McMillan into a nearby hotel, where he committed sexual assault. McMillan's intoxicated state left her defenseless, a vulnerability Fritz exploited. Resigning 2 weeks after the incident, Fritz faced initial charges of first-degree criminal sexual conduct and kidnapping. Yet, following a plea agreement, he entered a no-contest plea to a reduced charge of unlawful imprisonment in June 2017. On July 17, 2017, as Fritz awaited sentencing, McMillan was given the opportunity to confront her assailant with a victim impact statement.
What you did to me was wrong. You knew I was highly intoxicated, yet you used that as a selfish opportunity. My life has been forever changed. Every aspect of my life has been affected.
The impact of the victim's statement moved the courtroom, clearly conveying the extent of the trauma she experienced. Throughout the trial, Eric Fritz displayed an alarming absence of remorse for his actions. Despite the compelling evidence presented, he maintained that the encounter was consensual. His apology in court, notably, did not extend to the victim.
First, I'd like to apologize to my friends and family who I've actually let down. I'd also like to apologize for my coworkers who I embarrassed by my decisions. I'd also like to apologize to the people of Covert Township for my actions that night.
Van Buren County Circuit Judge Kathleen Brickley, overseeing the case, confronted Fritz directly.
The law enforcement oath of honor to protect and to serve and to uphold the highest of ethical standards. Instead, he preyed upon and exploited and damaged a woman who was entirely helpless due to excessive intoxication.
The judge's remarks resonated strongly, emphasizing the seriousness of Fritz's deeds and his misuse of authority. Eric Fritz received a sentence of 1 year in county jail, followed by 5 years of probation. Francine Martinez, a former officer, was found guilty of not stopping her partner's excessive force during a 2021 arrest, leading to a 6-month house arrest sentence. This ruling, following her April conviction, sets a precedent under Colorado's 2020 police reform law, criminalizing failure to intervene in excessive force cases. The incident unfolded in July 2021 when Martinez and Officer John Halbert responded to a trespassing report. During the arrest, Halbert escalated the situation, assaulting Kyle Vinson with his gun and threatening his life. Judge Cheryl Roll-Stokes decided on house arrest for Martinez on June 2nd, requiring her to also pay $500 in restitution. Despite support from friends and colleagues and the defense's consideration of an appeal, Martinez was advised against speaking during her sentencing. The absence of Vinson and his lawyers at the sentencing was noted, with the judge dismissing probation as an option for Martinez, stressing the need for accountability rather than rehabilitation. The decision also considered the impact on Martinez's law enforcement certification. Judge Stokes condemned Martinez's inaction, especially given her EMT background, stating that not challenging peers' misconduct is inexcusable. She warned that any breach of house arrest terms would lead to jail time. In the Miami-Dade Circuit Court, Judge Marissa Tinkler Mendez is set to deliver the sentence in the contentious case of Jordi Yanes Martell, a former Miami Gardens police officer. Martell faced charges of battery and trespassing following a widely publicized incident where he was filmed kneeling on a woman's neck and using a taser on her multiple times. As Martell awaited his sentence, his expression remained blank. The case centered around an event on January 14, 2020 at Tootsie's Cabaret in Miami Gardens, where Martell was working off-duty as security. The incident began when 33-year-old Sophia Satchel was being ejected from the club for misconduct towards a waitress. The confrontation escalated when Martell approached Satchel's vehicle as she was attempting to leave. Body camera footage and witness videos captured Martell forcibly removing Satchel from her car, taking her to the ground, and at one point placing his knees on her neck while another officer restrained her arms. During the altercation, Satchel, who was pregnant at the time, was tasered twice in the stomach, resulting in multiple bruises and scratches, including on her stomach from the taser impacts. The release of this footage sparked considerable outcry and led to Martell's termination from the Miami Gardens Police Department 5 months later. Martell faced 7 charges, including battery and official misconduct, but was acquitted of 5, leaving him convicted of battery and trespassing.
The jury find as follows: Count 1, official misconduct, incident report. The defendant is not guilty.
Just before the sentencing was pronounced, Sophia Satchel was granted the opportunity to deliver a victim impact statement to the court.
Me choking the life out of me, fabricating reports, and lying on me, to being tased multiple times in the abdomen while being pregnant. I want him to suffer as much as he intended for me to suffer that night.
Judge Mendez handed down a sentence of 30 days in prison to Jordi Yanes Martell.
30 days, Dade County Jail.
In addition to his prison sentence, the former Miami Gardens officer, Jordi Yanes Martell, was ordered to serve 18 months of probation and complete 250 hours of community service. Importantly, 100 of those hours must be dedicated to speaking at schools about the proper conduct expected of a police officer and the consequences of failing to uphold these standards. Michael Valva, an ex-NYPD officer, was sentenced to 25 years to life in prison for the murder of his 8-year-old son, Thomas. In January 2020, Valva forced Thomas to sleep in an unheated garage on a night when temperatures dropped below freezing, leading to the boy's death from hypothermia. Valva was convicted of second-degree murder, expressing to the court his lifetime of regret and remorse before receiving his sentence. The investigation into Valva and his then-girlfriend, Angela Polina, revealed a history of alleged physical abuse and neglect towards Thomas and his brother, spanning from September 2017 to January 2020. Reports from the East Mauritius School District indicated the boys often arrived at school in poor conditions, including signs of malnutrition and physical injuries. Suffolk County District Attorney Raymond Tierney remarked on the case's intense difficulty and heartbreak, criticizing the torture that led to Thomas's death as nothing short of evil. Evidence presented at trial included home surveillance footage of Valva's abusive behavior towards Thomas, including forcing him outside in freezing conditions and delaying emergency medical help, which ultimately resulted in Thomas's hypothermia and death. Thomas and his brother, both subject to this cruel treatment, had been sleeping in the garage for months. The Suffolk County Medical Examiner confirmed hypothermia as the cause of Thomas's death. The tragic living conditions of Thomas and his brother, also noted by school staff, included signs of severe neglect and physical abuse. Angela Polina faces charges of second-degree murder and endangering the welfare of a child, alongside the charges against Valva, as the case continues to seek justice for Thomas and his brother. On December 23, 2017, in the village of Bratenahl, police officers noticed an SUV parked on the side of the road with its engine still running. They stopped to investigate. However, contrary to expectations for a high-intensity scenario, the officers were not gearing up for one of their dramatic arrests.
No!
No! No!
Police department, stop!
Put your hands up right now! Put your hands up! Put your hands up! Put your hands up!
That flag wasn't just a random fashion statement, it was a significant indicator of the situation. This was East Cleveland police officer Joseph March, who was meant to be on a stakeout. However, he had instead become intoxicated and was found napping. When questioned by the other officers, he responded defensively, seemingly unaware of his intoxicated state.
Do you have any weapons on you?
Joseph was carefully escorted into the police car. The other officers made a startling discovery. A loaded automatic weapon was found in his vehicle.
That's an MP5.
What's that?
That's an MP5.
So why don't you do this? Why don't we do this? How about me and you go back to the station? Shayna stays here. We'll process him. When they get here, process them. We'll write them all up and everything. Tell them to come and pick him up.
Okay.
How do you feel that?
Sounds good to me.
You okay with that?
Yeah.
You sure? You guys okay?
Yeah.
All right.
Go with that.
This was the moment when the supervisor realized his body camera was activated, leading to a shift in demeanor as the situation unfolded, with the realization that they were dealing with more than just a routine intoxicated individual.
Go from there. Go from there.
Unfortunately, police officers who become intoxicated and resist arrest often end up being handled by their fellow team members. This situation raises concerns, especially if other ongoing crimes in the city require attention. At the station, the officers handled Joseph with care despite his aggression. However, Joseph remained defiant, refusing to acknowledge any wrongdoing, and even went as far as to threaten the officers.
Listen to me, I'm going to give you respect.
All right.
Listen to me. You're wasted. You sit down. Sit down, Joe.
Hey,
Joe, sit down. I know.
How about that?
Sit down. I understand that. Right.
Displaying a firearm to an officer without facing immediate physical intervention is certainly an unusual occurrence.
On top of it, you have all your turnout gear, your kit in the back, and your V7 in the back.
I do.
Oh, come on, sir.
I do.
I'm not trying. No disrespect at all. I respect
Well, you know what?
All right.
Get it.
You were passed out on my side street. All right.
Despite the leniency, Joseph continued speaking disrespectfully.
Hate to do this to you. I really do.
I'm not doing anything.
Oh, sit down. Sit down.
I'm not doing that.
Joe. All right, that's fine. Sit down. No problem.
You know.
Sit down.
You know.
Sit down, Joe. Sit down, please.
No.
Sit down. I do. I get it.
But
you put my teammates in a bad position. And I get it.
I don't want to put your guys in a bad position.
Joe, you were passed out on the side of the street, sir.
Okay.
You were passed out over there. Listen.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. You can talk.
No, go ahead.
You were passed out on the side of the street. My partner had to freaking knock on the window several times. You put it in park and went to drive away. And I know for a fact the way you're handling yourself right now, if this was EC and someone did that to you, you'd be doing the same thing, sir.
You know what?
You know I'm right.
You know what? I'll
right?
tell you what. I'll tell you what.
You're starting to smirk because you know I'm right.
I'll tell you what. I probably would.
I know.
I probably would. But I would not jam up
one of your guys.
What am I supposed to do?
You're jamming me up.
I'm not jamming you up.
Yes, you
I'm
are.
processing you and having your teammates come and get you.
Jamming me up.
Joseph, already receiving gentle treatment from the officers, believed they were not taking sufficient action. Even when the officers arrived to escort the intoxicated individual home, Joseph adamantly refused to cooperate and leave the premises.
You want to come here?
I want Scott here. One of my bosses.
Okay. Alright, yeah, Don said just coming back to the station with us. You know, we can talk there.
Listen, I'm getting charged with DUI.
Okay.
I'm not all over that. You know what I mean?
I hear you.
I'm on my boss now.
Okay.
That's
I understand. They said they said you've been being cool with them. You know, they were just gonna let me take you in your car back to the barn.
Joe, I want my boss here.
Okay. Alright, let me call Dylann and see if we can get him down here, okay?
No, not Dylann.
Joseph was convicted of operating a vehicle while intoxicated, but the consequences seemed disproportionately light. Despite the conviction, he only faced a 30-day suspension without pay, and although his driver's license was suspended, he was still granted work driving privileges. On July 14, 2018, Officer Tim Garcia's actions exemplified racism when he was caught yelling racial slurs at a suspect, Dwayne Robinson. Robinson had allegedly become aggressive and confrontational with mall security, using vulgar language and making threats. Despite Robinson complying with the request to leave, security guards continued to pursue and eventually detain him.
He was like, you understand? I said, look, man, I went like that. I said, look, y'all already told me what it was. I was like, I'm already walking up. Okay. So I tried to go back that way. I was like, I thought there was an exit, and they grabbed my bag. I said, look, man, don't grab my bag like that. Yeah. All they had to tell me was like, look, sir, there's not an exit over here. Yeah. And they was like, all right, we want you to exit the mall. I was like, look, man, I'm not about to exit the mall, bro. I said, look, I want the cops to come here to let y'all know the dumb y'all doing. Yeah. But look, I ain't even did nothing.
To recap, Robinson complied with security's request to leave, but became concerned when they used physical force against him. He asked them to call the police to resolve the situation, which led to an encounter with Officer Tim Garcia, who used derogatory and insulting language.
Now, my question to you is, if they tell you to leave the mall, you gonna leave the mall?
No, I don't want to. That's why I called you.
I understand you don't want to, but if they tell you, are you gonna leave the mall?
I'm asking for what?
Okay, they don't have to tell you. If they don't want you here, you're not here. Okay?
That makes no sense.
Okay, here's the deal. Now you're gonna get argumentative with me. They won't put you in jail. I'll put you in jail. We cool on that?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. You have your ID? Let me just get your information. I'm gonna get their information,
and
then we'll be up.
Y'all take my information, but like, they talking about they want to give me for criminal trespass.
Yeah, they might give you a criminal trespass.
Look, I ain't even did. Why y'all give me criminal trespass? What you mean, bro? What you mean they can't?
Sure.
Nah, hold up. What you mean they can't?
Okay, here's the deal. I'm gonna ask you to do something. I'm gonna tell you, then I'm gonna make you.
Let me go, bro. Look, go ahead and let me go, bro. Look, go ahead and let me go, bro.
Stop tensing up.
Yes, you are.
You know what? Now you're under arrest.
What?
Sit down. Sit down. Sit down. Sit down. Sit down. Sit down. Now you're under arrest for criminal trespass.
After allegedly refusing to provide his ID, the police decided to arrest Robinson. This decision seemed reasonable, as Robinson had initially refused to leave the property when asked. According to Garcia, Robinson even assumed an aggressive stance when asked to hand over his ID. However, the critical moment occurred when Robinson was already on the ground, handcuffed, and defenseless, as the officers began to escalate their behavior, becoming increasingly blunt and abusive.
Say, look, give me your ID, so I was about to give it to you.
But you did? No. You took it back.
What do you mean, bro?
It's all on camera.
Fast, bro. I didn't do nothing.
Dude, look how old I am. You think I act back? I listened to all your stupid for like 5 minutes.
Look, bro, and I said, look, before I give y'all my ID, can y'all tell me, like, why would I get a criminal trespass?
And I told you, if you're not shopping here, they don't want you.
All right, look, and they didn't even tell me, I don't even have criminal trespass.
You do now. Now you're going to jail.
You're tensing up like that is resistance.
Fool, you had my arm, bro.
No, I answered, bro. I'm not your fool. I'm nothing like
that.
I'm
bro,
an officer.
all I did was ask a question.
Right, and we asked you for your ID, and you refused to give it to us.
And look, I said, look, can y'all tell me? All right, give me your ID.
So we're detaining
I'm about to give it
for disturbing the peace.
Disturbing the peace?
Yeah, this is peaceful. It was.
You don't want to give us your arms.
Man, that's
we have action. That's just the way it goes.
The way you were raised is bull.
Tell me how I'm raised.
I'm telling you how you're raised.
Well, you got me.
Yeah, you are.
Police officers are expected to prioritize public safety and diffuse tense situations. However, Garcia's behavior indicates a disregard for his professional image. Instead of de-escalating, he escalates the situation further by resorting to the use of slurs and displaying blatant racism.
You too. Hey, here, look, this is the police. This is the police. You. How do you like that? Police said, just said it right back to you. You. I obviously I don't. On camera, I'll say it. Do I look like you? Well, I'm only 3.4% African.
What's wrong with? I thought you.
I'm 3.4% Sub-Saharan African. There you go. Say it right. Put an R at the end. If you're gonna say it, don't call me. That ain't.
Not only did the officer express those sentiments, but he also did so while acknowledging that he was willing to do it on camera, seemingly to assert his beliefs. However, his actions didn't stop there.
Why am I doing this?
For being.
Look, y'all just trying to speak.
Oh man, I'm just trying to get it right. I'm trying to get it right.
And you not putting my Where you want me to go, man?
That way. Everything was going good. You and I had a good rapport.
Yes, we did. Y'all didn't talk about kids. Trying to my life, bro.
Your life? I think you your life up. I didn't do that. I don't think you will.
The verbal abuse alone should have been enough, yet the officers escalated further when they reached the patrol cars, adding physical abuse to an already unjustified situation.
What are you doing? Stop. I'm trying to take your shoes off. Just stop. Quit acting like Why are you trying to take my shoes off? Because I have to search you. All you gotta do is behave. Why can't you just behave, dude?
Dude, you keep tensing up, you keep getting it.
There you go.
If you don't put back on my feet,
You because we gotta make sure you ain't got nothing in there.
If you find it strange that the officers are removing Robinson's shoes, you're absolutely correct. His arrest is for trespassing, not a drug or weapons offense, nor anything remotely dangerous. Furthermore, they didn't even search his shoes, yet forced him to walk barefoot on hot pavement in the midst of July.
Hey bro, can you stop harassing me?
Dude, this all would have been over if you would have just handed me your ID. You pulled it out of your wallet, you were fixing to hand it to me, and then you pulled it back, and you just didn't want to cooperate, man. You had it. You were there. All you had to do is give me your ID. We're gonna
get you up.
We're gonna stand up. Ready?
Yeah.
1, 2, 3.
Hey, look, man. Where? Y'all not gonna put my back in my
They're gonna go with you.
Look, watch your head. Watch your head.
After the incident, Robinson was taken back to jail on charges of trespassing and resisting arrest. However, it's the aftermath involving the officers that sheds light on the corrupt side of a police department. An investigation into Garcia's conduct was initiated. Initially, Garcia's sergeant recommended a written reprimand, arguing that Garcia didn't use the racial slur in a discriminatory manner, but merely repeated it back to Robinson. 2 lieutenants reviewed the incident and made this recommendation. Fortunately, the deputy chief, upon viewing the footage, recognized the severity of the situation and forwarded it to Internal Affairs for a formal investigation. Ultimately, the video reached the San Antonio police chief, who deemed Garcia's behavior wrong and recommended his indefinite suspension. He emphasized that Garcia's actions were inexcusable and far beyond what a reprimand could fix. In a desperate attempt to defend himself, Garcia made a final derogatory statement, claiming he was merely using a similar language to communicate with Robinson. However, his excuses fell flat, and in January 2019, Garcia was indefinitely suspended from his role with the San Antonio Police Department. Kenneth Blue, a former Michigan police officer, stands trial in Saginaw County Circuit Court for a crime that has deeply disturbed the local community and challenged public trust in law enforcement. His actions led to the death of his pregnant girlfriend, Jennifer Webb, and throughout his trial, Blue displayed a startling absence of remorse. On August 30th, 2011, Jennifer Webb's body was found next to a drainage ditch in Buena Vista Township, a site of utter despair. An extension cord was found wrapped around her neck, and her body showed marks of a brutal struggle. Initially deemed a suicide by the Buena Vista police, further investigation would reveal a much darker narrative. A forensic pathologist's testimony shifted the direction of the case, indicating that Webb's death was the result of deliberate strangulation, not suicide as previously considered.
Blue is charged on 4 counts including first-degree premeditated murder in the strangulation death of Jenny Webb, the Bridgeport woman bearing his unborn child.
Kenneth Blue, entangled in an affair with Jennifer Webb and identified as the father of her unborn child through DNA testing, faced charges for their murders. The evidence against him was decisive, leading to widespread shock as the seriousness of his actions became clear.
Kenneth Blue sat stoic and emotionless as he received his sentence for murdering his pregnant girlfriend Jenny Webb and his unborn son.
During his trial, Kenneth Blue remained cold and emotionless, showing no remorse for his actions.
Evil monster is the only words that I can think of for you.
Justice was ultimately delivered when Judge Darnell Jackson decided to go beyond the sentencing guidelines in recognition of the severity of Kenneth Blue's actions. Blue received a life sentence without the possibility of parole for the murder of Jennifer Webb, along with an additional sentence of 65 to 100 years for the death of the unborn child, ensuring he would face the full consequences of his crimes. Eberhart and Williams faced serious charges after a shocking incident where Gregory Towns Jr. lost his life, charged with murder, involuntary manslaughter, and 6 counts of violating their oath as public officers. The two were implicated in a case of excessive force. On April 11, 2014, after responding to a domestic dispute call at an apartment complex, the situation escalated when Towns, attempting to evade police, ran into the woods, only to be pursued by Eberhart and Williams. Tragically, Towns did not survive the encounter. Exhausted and unable to continue fleeing, he ended up handcuffed, lying at the bottom of an embankment. Despite his evident exhaustion and unconscious state, Eberhart deployed his taser against Towns 10 times, leading to Towns' death.
Shock time of 47 seconds.
Williams used his taser 3 times on Gregory Towns Jr. It took over a year for both Eberhart and Williams to be indicted and charged for Towns' death. At their trial, defense arguments suggested Towns' death was due to his health rather than the taser use, claiming the officers were justified in their actions. However, testimonies from paramedics and neighbors contradicted this, indicating Towns was compliant and questioning the necessity of using tasers.
Something in this case that should have never been done. And so it was important to our office to restore confidence in our criminal justice system, to let people know that if you are doing the wrong thing, that the system applies equally to everyone, to police officers as well as civilian defendants.
Following a day of deliberation, the jury reached a decision in the case. Eberhart was found guilty on all charges brought against him, while Williams was convicted of the lesser charges, including involuntary manslaughter and reckless conduct. Before the judge could hand down sentencing, Aisha Smith, Gregory Towns Jr.'s girlfriend, and the one who initially made the 911 call, addressed the court. Holding her 3-year-old son, she expressed her deep regret over making that call.
Calling the officers that day, it made the whole situation worse. You carried a lot of guilt. I carry a lot of guilt to this day.
When Williams was given the opportunity to address the court, he offered an apology to the family of Gregory Towns Jr. However, Aisha Smith, deeply affected by the loss and its circumstances, did not accept his apology and vocally expressed her anger in court.
To extend my condolences to the Towns family.
Nobody killed her. Nobody killed her.
After her reaction in court, Aisha Smith was directed to exit the courtroom and then spoke to reporters.
I don't want to hear anything he has to say. I just really don't want to hear anything he has to say. Gregory's not here to respond for himself, so I did it for him.
Eberhart received a life sentence with the possibility of parole, and Williams was sentenced to 5 years. In Essex County Court, former Newark police officer Jovanny Crespo faced legal proceedings after being accused of a serious incident that resulted in the death of one man and serious injury to another. Crespo was charged with shooting 3 times at their fleeing vehicle, an action captured in harrowing detail on camera. The incident in question unfolded on January 28, 2019. Crespo was on duty when another officer initiated a traffic stop on a Chrysler 300 around 11:17 p.m. Gregory Griffin, aged 46, was driving the vehicle with Andrew Dixon occupying the front passenger seat.
Turn off the vehicle.
Turn off the vehicle, sir. Turn it off.
During the traffic stop, the officer repeatedly requested Griffin to turn off the car, a request he refused. Upon spotting a handgun inside the vehicle, Griffin accelerated away, encouraging the officer to call for backup. Crespo and his partner responded to the call, joining what would become a frantic chase through Newark's Central Ward. Throughout the pursuit, Crespo discharged his weapon at the fleeing vehicle on 3 separate occasions across different locations. These actions resulted in Gregory Griffin's death and left Andrew Dixon with severe injuries. Following the incident, Crespo was suspended without pay and later indicted by a grand jury on 6 counts. His trial occurred in 2023, and his defense argued that he was performing his duty to protect lives.
Law enforcement officer saved lives that night. End of story.
Prosecutors argued against Crespo's defense, maintaining that he showed a deliberate disregard for Gregory Griffin's life. They contended that Griffin did not pose an imminent threat that justified Crespo's use of deadly force during the incident.
Whether or not there's a gun in the car, and there was a gun in the car, is not justification. Somebody in the back of the head and somebody else in the face.
The trial, extending over 10 weeks, concluded with intense emotion as Jovanny Crespo was found guilty on all 6 counts, including manslaughter. Following the verdict, Crespo was taken from the courtroom, facing up to 30 years in prison for his actions. In Tarrant County Court, the case of Officer John Romer Jr. reached its conclusion. Romer faced sentencing for a 2016 incident where he was caught on video punching Henry Newton, a 20-year-old black male, in a hospital lobby and subsequently making false statements about the altercation. On November 5th, 2016, while working off-duty security at Texas Harris Methodist Hospital, Romer encountered Newton, who had just been discharged after being treated for food poisoning. The altercation escalated when Romer, reacting to Newton's refusal to answer a security guard's repeated question about the hospital's name, a detail Newton had already shared with his parents, shoved and then pushed Newton to the ground, punching him in the face. Other officers joined Romer in subduing Newton, who was then arrested on charges of criminal trespass and resisting arrest, despite just having been discharged from the hospital. Despite body cam footage revealing the incident's unjust nature, Romer continued his duties until March 2018, when a civil lawsuit and additional charges were brought against him. During his 2019 trial, Romer claimed to the grand jury that he had punched Newton in response to resisting arrest. However, video evidence contradicted Romer's account, showing that Newton was punched before any mention of arrest was made. Romer was found guilty of aggravated perjury for his false statements and sentenced to 5 years in prison.
It is therefore the order, judgment, decree of this court that the defendant, John Preston Romer Jr., is hereby sentenced to 5 years confinement in the Institutional Division of the Texas Department of Criminal Justice.
Following the trial, while John Romer Jr. was sentenced to prison for his actions, the charges against Henry Newton were dropped, clearing him of the accusations made in the aftermath of the incident at the hospital. Brian, Sean, and Devin, former officers of the Sharon Hill Police, were charged in connection with the tragic death of 8-year-old Fanta Bility. The incident occurred as Fanta and her mother left a football game at Academy Park High School in August 2021. The officers, responding to unrelated gunfire nearby, mistakenly fired at a black Chevy Impala, mistakenly believed to be the source of the shots as it drove past the crowd exiting the game, including Fanta and her mother. This misjudgment led to Fanta's untimely death. Angelo Ford and Hussein Strand, who fired the initial shots, were initially charged with first-degree murder in Fanta's death, but later entered a plea deal, leading to the withdrawal of the charge. The 3 officers faced 12 criminal charges, including reckless endangerment and a second charge that was halted as part of a plea agreement with the district attorney, a deal Fanta's family supported as a form of accountability. The family preferred this to the emotional toll of a jury trial on more severe charges. The officers are left facing 10 counts of reckless endangerment, each punishable by up to 2 years in prison, potentially totaling 20 years. Their sentencing was scheduled for January 12, 2023. Regardless of the sentence's length, imprisonment is certain for the former officers. Following sentencing, Fanta's family attorney, Bruce Castor, plans to pursue a civil case, seeking justice in Delaware County before proceeding. Additionally, the family supports enhanced training and policy revisions within the Sharon Hill Borough Police Department. Charles Becker, a lieutenant in the New York City Police Department from the 1890s to the 1910s, became involved in criminal activities that ultimately led to his conviction and execution, marking him as the only NYPD officer to face such a fate for crimes linked to his official duties. At 42, Becker had rooted himself in New York's criminal underworld, allegedly extorting over $100,000 from Manhattan's brothels and illegal gambling casinos. In exchange, he provided these businesses with immunity from police raids while also funneling a portion of the proceeds to politicians and fellow officers. Herman Rosenthal, a flashy Estonian immigrant and operator of several illegal casinos in the Tenderloin district, became a target of Becker's extortion. A police raid led by Becker, resulting in significant damage to one of Rosenthal's casinos, pushed Rosenthal to expose Becker's corrupt practices to the press, revealing Becker's collection of 20% of the casino's profits. Rosenthal's decision to testify against Becker and his corrupt network turned fatal when he was murdered outside the Hotel Metropole shortly before his scheduled grand jury testimony. The assassination, carried out by Lefty Lewis, Whitey Lewis, Dago Frank, and Gyp the Blood, who made no attempt to hide their identities, was directed, according to Manhattan DA Charles S. Whitman, by Becker himself. Following investigations, Becker was arrested on July 29, 1912. His first trial, spoiled by the obvious bias of presiding Judge John Goff, resulted in a conviction that was later overturned. However, a 1914 retrial again found Becker guilty, sentencing him to death, a historic outcome for a New York police officer. Throughout his trial and later conviction, Becker maintained his innocence, suggesting that key witnesses against him, including Jack Rose, Harry Vallum, Sam Sheps, and Bridget Weber, had been forced into testifying to protect themselves, while other criminal figures were offered immunity by the DA. In the incident involving Dallas police officer Amber Guyger, she made a startling emergency call one evening.
Get up, man. Dallas 911, this is Carla. Where's your emergency? Hi, this is an off-duty officer. I need EMS. I'm in number. What's going on? I'm an off-duty officer. I thought it was at my apartment, and I shot a guy thinking it was my apartment. Someone? Yes, I thought it was my apartment. Oh my God. I'm sorry. Okay, and where are you at right now? I'm inside the apartment with him.
According to accounts, Guyger entered the residence of her neighbor, Botham Jean, shooting him twice. She claimed that she confused Jean's apartment with hers and believed he was a burglar. Responders were quick to the scene. As Jean's moments dwindled, officers frantically attempted CPR in a bid to save him. Unfortunately, Jean gave in to his injuries shortly after at the hospital. During her interrogation, Guyger's behavior reflected the distress evident in her emergency call.
Still felt like that guy was going to kill me. I wish he was.
In court, the prosecution said that Guyger's actions were unreasonable and reckless.
She's leveling off her having acquired her target, and she shoots at him twice. No opportunity for de-escalation, no opportunity for him to surrender. Bang, bang, rapid, double tap.
They stated that Jean was in a defensive posture when he was shot.
Hits Bo in the chest just above his left nipple. The path of that bullet goes down into his heart, does absolutely devastating damage. Goes through his lung, goes through his stomach, goes through his intestine, until it finally comes to a rest in what's called the psoas muscle, which is halfway between his stomach and his back. This path is very revealing because it is consistent with the fact that Bo was getting up from a seated position and facing the door as Amber Guyger was coming into his home.
The defense maintained that Guyger's actions resulted from an honest error, asserting she acted in self-defense.
Amber Guyger firmly and reasonably believed that she was in her own apartment, that she had confronted an intruder, that she had no choice, that she had no options but to use her keep from.
Residents from the same building shared their accounts of the events that unfolded that night.
Just go in and I actually was about to cook me something to eat.
Okay, what happened then?
And then I heard.
Okay, how many do you remember?
2.
Anything that you saw that made you think, that's different?
Just, like I said, I just noticed it was an officer walking in. I saw she had a bag, and I just kind of saw it and went to my apartment.
And I'm saying, let me see your hands, let me see your hands.
What were you focused on?
Him.
Just him?
Yes.
And then he began filming for you?
Yes.
And as he became filming for you, that's when you heard him speak?
Yes.
Good. I'm going to do that now. Right.
Yes, sir.
Hey! Hey! Hey!
And that's at that point whenever I...
Somewhere in this area?
Yes.
When you what happened?
He felt it.
She became emotional and expressed regret for her actions.
And I'm so sorry. I'm sorry.
Yet, Guyger's subsequent statement left the entire courtroom surprised.
Shooting him in center mass, exactly where you are trained. You intended to kill Mr. John.
I did.
She outright admitted to taking Botham Jean's life. Guyger received a 10-year prison sentence with eligibility for parole after 5 years.
We, the jury, find unanimously that the defendant did not cause the death of Botham John while under the immediate influence of sudden passion, and assess the defendant's punishment at 10 years imprisonment in the Texas Department of Criminal Justice.
The trial witnessed a moving moment of mercy and forgiveness when Jean's younger brother, Brant, spoke in court.
Again, I'm speaking for myself, not even bad for my family. But I love you just like anyone else. I'm not gonna say I hope you rot and die.
He offered forgiveness to Guyger and expressed his good wishes for her.
I personally want the best for you, and I wasn't gonna ever say this in front of my family or anyone, but I don't even want you to go to jail.
However, his next action was seen as compassionate and healing.
I don't know if this is possible, but can I give her a hug, please?
An additional act of kindness was shown by Judge Tammy Kemp, who embraced Guyger and handed her a Bible, encouraging her to read it and seek God. Amber Guyger was sentenced to 10 years in prison for the unintentional killing of her neighbor. Kim Potter, a former officer, mistakenly used her gun instead of a taser, fatally shooting Dante Wright, a black motorist, during a traffic stop. On December 31st, 2021, Potter was sentenced to 22.5 years in prison. Having served 26 years as a police officer, she argued the shooting in April 2021 was a tragic mistake. Convicted of second-degree and first-degree manslaughter in December 2021, Potter tearfully apologized to Wright's family prior to her sentencing. However, the family, through their attorney, voiced their frustration, feeling that Potter's emotional apology overshadowed the pursuit of justice. The sentencing remarks by the judge were criticized for lacking empathy towards the victim.
Would Miss Potter please rise? I'm now going to read your verdicts as it will appear in the permanent court records of Hennepin County. In the matter of State of Minnesota versus Kimberly Potter, court file number 27CR217490, we, the jury, on the charge of manslaughter in the first degree while committing a misdemeanor on or about April 11, 2021, in Hennepin County, State of Minnesota, find the defendant guilty. And the verdict was agreed to at the hour of 11:40 a.m. and signed by the jury person on 12/23/21. The verdict on count 2 is we, the jury, on the charge of manslaughter in the second degree, culpable negligence on or about April 11, 2021, in Hennepin County, State of Minnesota, find the defendant guilty. And that verdict was agreed to at 10:30 a.m. on 12/21/21. Members of the jury, is this your true and correct verdict? So say you one, and so say you all.
Yes.
Okay, you may be seated.
Potter's trial unfolded during a broader national dialogue on policing and systemic racism, ignited by George Floyd's murder by Minneapolis police officer Derek Chauvin in May 2020. Floyd's death led to widespread protests demanding police reform and an end to the inconsistent killing of black individuals by police. Potter's conviction marked a rare instance of an officer being held accountable for the death of a black person. Research indicates that police officers are seldom charged or convicted in such deaths. The trial also spotlighted concerns over police training and the use of force, with expert testimony suggesting Potter was poorly trained and made critical mistakes leading to Wright's death. Despite her defense that she intended to use her taser, prosecutors maintained that Potter's actions were reckless, and she should have recognized the significant differences between a taser and a gun. The individual caught on video taking items is Smith County Chief Deputy Laquenda Banks. In January 2021, Banks, Constable Curtis Trailer Harris, and Sergeant Derek Holman visited a residence to deliver an eviction notice. After evacuating the occupants, they began searching through their possessions. Unintentionally, Banks activated her body camera, recording every detail of their actions as they took items ranging from cash and Apple products to luxury eyewear. Banks pocketed any valuables she discovered, eventually transferring them to Sergeant Holman's vehicle. The discovery of drugs in the home seemingly made it a less defensible target for their actions.
Discovery of drugs all of a sudden make them an easy target.
Yes.
Constable Trailer Harris was the first to stand trial, initially denying any awareness of the theft.
What we see Miss Banks doing on the video, as everyone has seen it, were you aware of what she was doing?
No. Never seen me pick up anything or conceal anything or hide anything.
The detective leading the investigation was convinced that Trailer Harris was complicit in the crime.
She was doing this unbeknownst to Constable Trailer Harris. Why would she say it out loud?
I have no idea.
Maybe because he was in on it?
I believe so.
Does there appear to be a scheme here?
Yes.
Banks provided testimony in court implicating Trailer Harris.
What did you believe him to mean by that at that moment?
Whatever you see and you want it, take it.
Banks claimed she was pressured into stealing by the defendant.
He was my boss, so I'm gonna do what he says do. I was forced to do it. If I would have said no, I would have most likely gotten fired.
Trailer Harris was convicted and sentenced to 5 years probation. He expressed remorse for his actions and apologized to the victims.
First, I'd like to publicly offer an apology to the Foster family. The actions of my deputies that day and the inaction of me to stop it from happening. I sincerely apologize to them for that. I put myself through the academy twice, and it's just something I want to do my entire life. So just the thought of it not being able to do it anymore, it's devastating, but I just want to be able to move on from it.
By testifying against both Trailer Harris and Holman, Banks avoided imprisonment. Derek Holman was subsequently acquitted and found not guilty of all charges. Michael Dotro, an ex-Edison police officer, devised numerous revenge schemes targeting individuals who had wronged him, including colleagues within the police force.
I want to understand where I'm coming from with regards to this, especially if there's going to be any appellate review of this sentence. I want those judges to know.
Michael Dotro, a former Edison police officer, was sentenced to 20 years in prison for firebombing his supervisor's residence. Superior Court Judge Pedro Jimenez commented on Dotro's transformation of his police role into a nightmarish storyline before announcing the sentence. Described as a fraud, Dotro's policing career ended with him serving at least 17 years behind bars before parole eligibility, as agreed in a plea deal that concluded 2 arson cases and numerous misconduct charges. The plea also covered Dotro intimidating a witness and violating probation. Dotro's defense sought the minimum sentence possible, arguing the potential for rehabilitation. However, the prosecution highlighted his actions, especially the May 2013 firebombing of Deputy Chief Mark Ndurko's home with his family inside, as a betrayal of his oath. Dotro admitted to the arson, executed the day before a trial where he and his wife were accused of tire slashing. This plea included a guilty admission to attempted murder and arson. Judge Jimenez condemned the act's wickedness, emphasizing the danger it posed to the sleeping occupants. The attack on Ndurko was reportedly motivated by professional objections, including shift changes and a required psychological evaluation after multiple excessive force complaints. The case also concluded charges against Dotro and his wife, with Dotro pleading guilty to official misconduct for cyberbullying, tire slashing, unauthorized database access, and possessing illegal items. His wife, Alicia Dotro, was offered a chance to avoid a lengthy sentence by completing a pretrial intervention program following drug charges and false statements to investigators. Before the charges, the Dotros ran Alicia's Bistro in Freehold and were interviewed in a local newspaper, presenting themselves under assumed careers. Legal debates later centered on lifting travel restrictions for Michael Dotro for business and family health reasons, and he also admitted to witness tampering before their trial. Susan Marie Mellen's story is a harrowing one, where she spent an astounding 17 years behind bars for a crime she did not commit. Accused of participating in the fatal beating of Richard Daley, a homeless individual, Mellen was sentenced to life in prison without the chance for parole at the age of 42. Images of her during an interrogation capture a moment of desperation as she pleads with a detective to believe in her innocence, insisting she had no role in the crimes.
Anyway, are you sick, ill, or injured? Do you have any medical problems? No, but I do. Okay, I'm gonna book you. No, I'm not gonna believe. I'm talking homicide. A man was murdered. All right.
Susan was convicted based on the testimony of an informant whose credibility was later revealed to be severely compromised, as the individual was found to be a habitual liar.
I would never, from my heart and my soul, I would never let somebody do that to anybody. I didn't hate Rick. I would never let anybody do somebody I hated. I still, I had feelings for the man. He was good to me. He was good to me. He was good to my kids.
During Susan's interrogation, she steadfastly maintained her innocence, strongly denying any involvement in the murder. However, Detective Wynn from the LAPD remained unconvinced. In fact, Wynn was so convinced of Susan's guilt that she arrested her for murder before the interrogation concluded. Feeling abandoned, and with no one else to turn to, Susan found comfort in prayer, hoping against hope that she wouldn't be arrested for a crime she didn't commit. Fast forward, 17 years later, Susan, now 59 years old, stands on the brink of exoneration in a Torrance courthouse.
Petition is granted, the judgment is vacated, the conviction is overturned, and as to Miss Mellen, the case is dismissed.
Witness the moment as tears of joy stream down Susan's face, overwhelmed by a flood of emotions. As she embraces her grandchild for the first time, she expresses her unwavering belief that the truth will eventually prevail.
I even wrote freedom on the bottom of my tennis shoes with a black marker because I believe I was going to be free.
Throughout her ordeal, Susan never wavered in her faith and held on to her conviction that one day she would be on the right side. Now that this long-awaited day had finally arrived, her joy overflowed, encouraging her to break into a celebratory dance. As Susan embraced her family, she extended forgiveness to those who had wrongfully imprisoned her. She eagerly looked forward to sharing a McDonald's Happy Meal with her youngest daughter, indicative of the day they were unable to enjoy one due to her unjust arrest. David Hall, charged with driving under the influence and driving with a suspended license, stands before Judge John Hurley in Broward County for his bond hearing. However, the true surprise unfolded when Hall unleashed his outburst in the courtroom. As Judge Hurley begins to read the charges, Hall interrupts.
Mr. Hall, DUI, expired driver's license.
Good morning, Judge. Sir, I haven't said for the court how I'm appearing today.
Hall interrupts, informing the judge that he hasn't yet stated how he's appearing in court. However, the judge calmly reassures Hall that he will address that matter shortly.
I'm not asking you yet. Just give me a moment, all right? I need to look at your record.
Nevertheless, Hall's odd legal approach persists as he identifies himself as the agent and settler for David Hall.
Today I'm appearing as the agent and settler for David Hall.
Okay. Could you get Mr. Hall for me then, sir? Where is he?
I go by that name, sir. My name sounds exactly like the defendant's, and I'm here to settle that matter today.
The judge inquires whether Hall and David Hall are the same person, to which Hall responds that he's an individual, not a person, and claims a difference between himself and David Hall.
Are you and David Hall one and the same person?
I'm not a person, I'm an individual. David Hall is a person, I am a private individual.
This exchange causes some confusion, but the judge maintains his composure. Undeterred by Hall's legal maneuvering, Judge Hurley sets the bond while sarcastically acknowledging Hall's multiple self-identifications.
May I say something else for the record, sir?
Go ahead, sir.
I appear here today as the settler, agent, not the person, but the individual. And I don't think I should have. You understand the difference between a person and an individual.
And you're the individual, but you're not the person. Is that correct?
Correct.
Got
Correct.
it. I'm going to write that down.
However, the judge notes that Hall's new charges violate his original bond conditions. As a result, regardless of how Hall refers to himself, he won't be released from jail unless he can pay the bond amount.
Here's what we're going to do. The settler, the agent, the individual, and maybe even the person, David Hall, has been charged with DUI. So today, the court's going to set the settler, the agent, the individual's bond, and even the person's bond today, $10,000, because the settler, the agent, the individual, and the person has not stopped driving, even though the settler, the agent, the individual, and the person continues to drive without a driver's license.
May I post bond, sir?
Finally, it's Judge Hurley's turn to play games.
Well,
is there any other?
Are you asking me as the settler, the agent, the individual, or are you asking me as the person?
Sir, I'm asking as the individual appearing before you today, the opportunity.
Who are you speaking on behalf of right now?
Sir, I don't understand that question. I believe that you're trying to confuse me now. I'm not the person, sir.
Okay, when
I am
you
not
see the person,
person.
David Hall, tell him he's not leaving jail either, all right? We'll have a nice day.
In the end, despite Hall's creative approach to identity and the law, his bond is set at $10,000, and he is not granted bail because he violated his existing bond conditions. Big thanks to our viewers for joining the courtroom journey with us. Your interest in the stories of justice is what keeps our channel alive.